What's going on, everybody? This is your boy Mike, and this is going to be the first Dead to Zombies podcast sponsored by Nrdfeed.com. This is your host Mike, and we also have Taylor Hatcher. How you doing tonight, Taylor?
I am doing great. Very excited to talk about this last episode and everything that we're feeling and thinking about what's coming up.
All right. Well, that's pretty awesome. We got about 10 topics on the side here, plus a fandom fight that Taylor uploaded to Nerdfeed herself. We're going to give a little insight on that too. But let's go ahead and start with the very first topic, TWD Tidbits. Taylor, what are your thoughts on this?
We have a lot of stuff going on, just a few little things. I think this season is really showing us that no one's safe. You can
No.
go at any time from the littlest, stupidest thing. And I actually think that started last season with Tyrese, which
Yeah.
was pretty sad. But
Yeah.
it's really pounding in the fact you're not safe. You have to be aware and prepared at all times, no matter what. it's
Absolutely. I mean, you crowded around by 40 walkers and you kill them all with a hammer and get bit by a kid. You never know what could happen in the zombie apocalypse. You know what I mean?
exactly.
But we're going to go ahead and jump on our next topic, Rick in Trouble. Now, this is based off of when Rick was in the RV, surrounded by zombies. How do you think he's going to get out of this, Taylor?
I'm not sure, but I have a very good feeling he's going to get out of it. This was a very clear, homage to the very first episode when Rick gets trapped in the tank. We hear Glenn call over the radio to him, "You cozy in there, dumbass?" Which he said to him over the radio just a little bit earlier in this episode. So I think that's telling the fans that he's going to get out of there somehow. He might get hurt in the process, in addition to his hand, maybe. But I think he's going to get out, and that I think that also leads into the fact that Glenn's going to get out because Glenn's a survivor. But with Rick, I think it's a clear sign that he's going to get out of there somehow.
Most definitely, most definitely. If any, we got any comic readers that are watching tonight. If you remember, Rick lost his hand in the comics, so it's very well that it could happen that way. The only issue that I'm seeing with that is when you got cut in the comics with an infected knife, because Negan wrapped the knives and everything in a bunch of gunk,
The
zombie gunk,
zombie juices.
and just
Yeah, I
stabbed
remember
you
that.
with it, and you got infected. But that I don't believe that knife was to that point where it cut Rick, where he's really going to have to lose his hand. I know that Kirkman said that he really regretted doing that in the comics, so that kind of leads me to believe he probably won't do it in the show.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. I think it would be kind of cool because it would be a nice little tribute to the comics, but I've heard them say it would just be too much trouble to do with the green screen and everything. But I do know that Andrew Lincoln was pushing to have Rick lose his hand because he wanted it to be a little bit more true to the comics and add that in.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. Now I did notice that when the army was getting surrounded by walkers, it didn't look like he was really getting surrounded. It almost looked like they were just coming from one side. So maybe he can, crawl out the top or go out the other side or something to get out of there. Hopefully.
Yeah, I hope so. It was all the walkers coming out of the forest onto the road. You could see it. It wasn't them coming down the road because we saw back in episode 1 of this season when they got distracted by the horn, they turned into the forest. So obviously they cut through the forest and now they've come back up onto the road. And Rick was right in his estimation of where they were going to come out. Obviously a little too right. Since now he's stuck there. But yeah, they're coming out of the forest, so he does have a chance. I mean, even if they were coming straight down the road, he still has a chance, but it's going to be tricky.
Very, very. Just kind of one of them little scenes that, I just, in my weird brain, I kind of wish that Dale would have just stuck his head in there and, you need help starting this thing. But we're going to go ahead and go to the next topic, Morgan to blame. Now, what are your thoughts on this? Do you believe that Morgan is really to blame for all this going down?
For Rick being in the RV or getting stuck in the RV,
Hmm.
I yeah, it's pretty close because Morgan let those wolves go, and those were the wolves that ran away that picked up the gun. Those were the same exact wolves that just attacked Rick in the RV. And if you match up the timelines, they ran away and they were at the RV within a couple minutes. So he's really not that far from Alexandria, and Morgan could have easily stopped them, but being Morgan and he's still in that mindset, all life is precious. So he let them go and they went straight to Rick. So I think it's pretty clear that he's 99% to blame for that one.
Right. I kind of think the same way. I mean, in my own mindset, it's kind of in a real way. It's to me, it's not really fair to blame him. That you can't blame somebody for not wanting to kill people, but at the same time, he hasn't ran into people that wanted to eat you like Rick did. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So you got to look at situations and when it's okay to do something like that. And I that's where the other part of me comes in that thinks that yeah, Morgan should have killed him right then and there.
Yeah, I think that's what Carol was trying to show him in the last episode. And he doesn't know, that these wolves went straight to Rick, but it's clear that him letting them go had some pretty bad consequences.
Absolutely, absolutely. But that's okay because next week in the 90-minute episode, we're really going to see why Morgan feels the way he does. So that's going to be really interesting.
Yes, I'm very excited for that. I do like the flashbacks and getting more backstory on characters. It's pretty fun.
All right, well, let's go to the next topic. Nicholas Atones. What are your thoughts on this?
It's kind of hard to say, but my gut reaction is that no, he doesn't. He tried. You could see he was trying, but I think he was just taken over by his panic attacks and he was just traumatized by being left behind with some of his old crew and then leaving behind some other crew, and it just really took him over. And then if he shot himself in the head, which it seems like he did, but there's some other theories to that, that I think that was a little cowardly because he just leaves Glenn to fend for himself. And he did fall on top of Glenn, which most likely will save Glenn. Glenn's alive. But
Let's keep our fingers crossed for
it
sure.
was unintentional that he fell on Glenn. He didn't plan to kill himself and fall on Glenn and save Glenn. That wasn't the plan. So I think it's leaning more towards no for me.
I really didn't see this coming, to be honest with you, because if I'm not mistaken, in the comic series, they had kind of the same issues with Nicholas. Like he was a douchebag at first, but then he finally came around. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah.
so I really thought that was kind of going to happen, maybe in a little different way, but I still thought he was going to be a part of the group for a while. And yeah, that didn't happen.
Yeah, definitely not. They have confirmed that Nicholas is definitely dead. So whether or not it was from a gunshot, I guess we'll find out. But it's been confirmed through the producers that he is dead.
Oh yeah, I think even the actor Michael Trainer, I believe he even confirmed it himself that he was dead.
Yes.
Let's move after the next one. Michonne mic drop. Loved this scene. Loved it. Loved it. Loved it. I think Michonne is getting better every season.
She was fantastic. She was really, really great in this episode. She really shone. Shoned in this episode. Sorry, that was a really bad pun. Her little speech to Heath was just really great. I love seeing more of her. I don't think we see enough of her, and her what she was doing in this episode and what Rick was doing in this episode and even Heath was greatly overshadowed by what happened with Glenn, but it doesn't mean that it wasn't just as good as what happened. And she had some great points to Heath, and you could see her just getting more pissed off as he was getting those little barbs in at her, and finally she just blows up at him, which was so funny and just so perfectly timed, and he needed to hear what she said for sure.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Because even I was kind of screaming at the TV when she's telling
Yeah.
you haven't done this, you haven't done that. Rick has, and he's like, well, I've been on runs, and you just want to shake him and be like, no, dude, you don't understand, you know. Um, but yeah, so far I love Heath, and I'm glad him and Michonne had that moment together.
Yeah.
Because I really think, especially towards the end there, that conversation really opened his eyes to some things.
Yeah, it really, when he saw his reflection and saw the blood on him from when David got eaten, you could see he was like, okay, you could see him starting to see and understand what she was trying to get through to him.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. I do believe it, like this season. I've seen a little less of Michonne than I've really wanted to, but the parts that we have gotten of her have been just awesome.
Yeah, she's always great, no matter what she's going through. It's always really fun to see her.
That when she was talking to Morgan about that peanut butter bar, man, I'm telling you that thing is going to go around for months.
Oh, it was so great. Did you take my peanut butter bar? Nope. I love the
Just the look
instant.
on her
Nope.
face, it just was priceless.
Yeah, it was a pretty great moment. And you
All
could
right,
see he did not believe her.
right. Yeah, he definitely didn't believe that. Let's go on to our next topic. Taste of David. No, I'm sorry, Michonne. No, what's
Taste of David.
Taste
Yeah.
of David? Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
We
I had
lost
to
a
lose
lot of
track of.
Alexandrians.
Well,
Poor David. Beat to
David,
death this one.
it's surely a shame that his wife will never see that letter.
Yeah, it's you think Michonne would have taken it just in case, even though she tried to reassure him. You
She
think
did
they would
write
have learned?
something on her arm, though.
She wrote, "You're going home," which she then later saw and rubbed it off because obviously he's not going home.
No, he's not. That poor man's not gonna make it.
Yeah.
And he is actually one, somebody that we really haven't gotten to know that I kind of attached myself to pretty quick and was kind of hoping he would make it.
Yeah, we've had some really crappy Alexandrians that have been around a little bit longer, and then some really great ones. And then, like David, you could see he was a stand up guy and he was just trying to help out in any way he could. And he's one of the first ones to go.
Yep, definitely. I will say this. I do believe whoever's the first one to not want to help somebody is going to be the first to go, which we kind of seen because we had that one guy. I don't even remember his name. In the blue shirt that was talking crap about Rick,
Oh,
and
in
then
the
what was it?
beginning.
2 minutes later, he got bit.
Yeah, that that was
Yeah,
Barnes.
that's it. Yep.
Yep. You argue with Rick, you get the head tilt. You're done.
Might get the red handle machete. Better watch it.
Yeah, right. That I did like that scene with David, even though it was sad, because when you see Heath just sitting there in shock, staring at him and getting the blood on his face, and David getting torn apart right in front of him, it's exactly what Glenn went through, right near the end of season 5 when Noah gets torn apart right in front of him. So that was kind of an interesting, mirroring right there. So I'm wondering if they're going to be, hopefully keep Heath around. He is in the comics a little bit longer at this point. But maybe they're going to be start building him up to be a good supply runner, just like Glenn was, hopefully still is.
I do
Hey
know
everybody,
that.
this is producer Nick over here, running stuff from behind the scenes. I just want to add this thing in that was eating me alive. Haha, I get it. Why didn't they mercy kill this guy? Why didn't they just, they had lots of bullets. They could have easily shot him, or Michonne could have, but no, they let him just get torn apart. What do you guys think about that?
That's actually what I was mad at the whole episode. I was yelling when Annie dies, and then they just let her get torn apart. Michonne could have ran forward real quick and just got her through the head, or just shot her in the head, and then David dies right in front of them. They could have easily just shot him through the fence, or same thing with the sword. I was like, why aren't they mercy killing them? I'm so attached to Z Nation now. And that's my thing. Mercy kill. Come on, guys. Mercy kill. They don't do it. I'm like, what the crap? It was so easy.
I
You
guess
don't leave
that's
your
where
own to
just my
turn.
mind. That's just where my mind is just off somewhere because I wasn't even thinking, why don't they go ahead and kill him? I was thinking, why are you standing there watching this run?
Yeah, that's true. Mercy kill and then run.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Rule one, cardio.
Cardio.
All right, next topic we've got Heath's baptism, and we've already kind of touched on this a little bit, but give me your thoughts on how you felt about this whole thing.
I think it was good for him. I, again, sad for David, but good for Heath. His eyes are open now. He can really start to really contribute and know exactly what he has to deal with out there, and it's going to make him a better scout, a better supply runner for sure.
I agree. I 100% agree, and I do think he will be on the show for a while. I mean, the guy is a really good actor. I don't know if you've seen Straight Outta Compton, but he is a really good actor. He played that to a T.
Yeah, he's a great actor, and it's a great character, and they can do a lot with that character. I agree. I really hope they keep him around too.
They really made it a point when they first introduced us to Heath in the show. They really made it a point to kind of push him in our face for us to like him. You know what I mean? And I kind of, especially that little back and forth that him and
Eugene.
yeah, him and Eugene had. And I was just it had me rolling, man. Like
Yeah, no, that
from
was
that
that was
point
a
on, I
great
was
scene.
like, yeah, Heath. I like Heath.
I think it was a good way to introduce us to him through Eugene, because Eugene is so serious, but to us, it's just whatever he says is always funny, And it was just a great introduction for Heath, very lighthearted, and you don't get many of those kind of moments on the show.
No,
And
you don't.
he's like, "Oh, by the way, I fully respect your hair game." Like it's just it was just so funny. It was just all right. I was like, I'm gonna like this. I really hope Heath is gonna be good on this.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, because I mean they're doing a lot of things with Eugene too, like the way that they kind of introduced Denise with Eugene with that little kind of back and forth. I
Yeah,
think
with that
that really went well too.
coward remark. Yeah, that was pretty great.
All right, we got our next topic: pot shots at Scott. Well, he got some
Scott got
bullets to the
shot.
leg. What do you think?
I think it was interesting. I was a little disappointed in how they did it, but it was a great tie-in from the comics. When we first see Scott in the comics, he's just broken his leg, so that was cool. I mean, they still carried over that. I think it was a little sad that it was just a random shot firing from that guy Sturgis who got eaten later.
Yep.
They find his hat and then they find him down that alleyway being eaten. So it was kind of lame, kind of like a Tyrese moment, gets taken out by a little kid. Scott gets shot by just this dumbass firing randomly. But it was neat that they pulled in the comics like that, which is, they said that they're going to really try and pull from the comics this season again. So it's fun to see how they interpret those moments.
At this point, I think the closest thing they've gotten to the comics before season 5 was the first season. Um,
Yeah.
that was pretty tight, with the beginning of the comics. But other than that, season 5, I think they really started pulling a lot of material from there.
Yeah, I think they did pretty well with the first season. And then I think with the governor, disregarding the fact that he was a white guy. I mean, David Morrissey did a fantastic job, and he's one of my favorite characters on the show of all time. He was just great, but that the scene where he kills Herschel is a clear tie-in from the comics. When in the comics he beheads Tyrese, and on the show he beheaded Herschel, so it was almost exactly the same. And I love seeing those moments because the producers are always trying to trip up the fans, the hardcore fans that have read all the books and read all the comics and seen every episode a million times like we have. So they're always like, oh, well, how are they going to change this? And then there's some times where they just don't really change it at all. And you're like, oh, that was pretty obvious and awesome.
Kirkman is definitely an evil, evil man.
Yes. Loves to mess with the fans for sure.
Yes, he does. And we got our last topic: moment of Glenn. we we could talk probably all night about this. Honestly, um, everybody hopes that Glenn's not dead, but I mean, what are your thoughts about the whole situation with him and Nick in front of in front of the garbage can and them being on top of it, or if it was even real?
It's really hard to say. It's from what I've read, I've been scouring interviews and fan reactions and just everything I can find about it because Glenn is definitely one of my favorites across the board, comics and show. He's such a great character. He's so relatable. He's fun, he's dependable, he's resourceful. He's also had a really great character arc. You kind of forget cuz Carol has really shown she's been really great. You can see how far she's come. She's had, I think, the best turnaround of a character, but Glenn has also come really far too. He was just this nerdy little pizza delivery dude, and now he's one of Rick's trusted friends. He's a great leader, and he's resourceful, and he's a good friend to have. And he's really thrived in this environment, which is sad, but good for him. Sorry, I got a little off topic. I'm still sad. I'm still reeling. I am 99% sure Glenn is not dead, but there's that 1% of me that is still screaming in terror, just like he was on the show that he is. And I really don't think he is. From if what we saw was real, real on the show, the what the zombies were tearing into was too far up. We clearly saw intestines. There's no way intestines are coming out of Glenn's chest. We could
No.
see Glenn screaming his head off. There's no way that he would be screaming like that if they were tearing into his lungs, which they weren't.
To,
He would have blood pouring out of his mouth, which he didn't.
to me, that didn't even look like a pain face, I guess I'll say. You know what I'm saying? Because
Yes.
there's a certain look of pain, and then there's a certain look when you're hurt. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I
Exactly.
don't believe that looked like a pain face for one, and for two,
No.
I completely agree with you. You know, last I checked, guts aren't in your chest. So
Exactly.
I mean,
Basic anatomy, folks.
but then
And it's
there are
sorry.
probably 20 different theories that people are throwing out there right now, maybe even more than that. But even with all of those theories, to me, I can put every theory aside, just that whole scene itself aside, and just look at the way they were acting about it on the
Yeah,
Talking Dead, and that tells me everything I need to know.
exactly. I mean,
Glenn,
and they
Glenn is a
said
season one veteran. If he was dead, we would have had some kind of confirmation. We would have had a memorial for him.
yes,
You
for
know,
sure. They're
I,
down to 5 now. There's only 5 people left from the first season. And it's not like he's just a little tag along 5th character here. This is Glenn. He's a major character. There's no way that they would do that disservice to him. That's a horrible way to do that to him. If you've read the comics, you know how he goes out, and it's still very brutal and very sad. But I think to do this to him right now in that exact way, just have Nicholas accidentally knock him off the dumpster into a sea of zombies, like it doesn't sit right. And there's only 3 ways he's going to come back. He's going to be alive, he's going to be dead, or he's going to be a walker. I don't think he's going to be a walker. If he really was getting torn into, there's not going to be enough of him left to be a walker.
that's
And there
true.
wouldn't be enough of him really to see him dead. So he's alive for sure. I'm saying it. I'm calling it. He's alive.
Hey, I believe it. I believe he's alive. As of right now, unless they show me the body or show me some limbs, he's alive. Like,
Yes.
um, because I cannot see it any other way right now.
Did you see what Scott Gimple said about Glenn, his official remarks about it?
I did not.
He said, let me come down to it. He said, "We will see Glenn, some version of Glenn or parts of Glenn, again, either in a flashback or in the current timeline. We will complete the story. That's the important thing. That's what people are feeling, and it will be this half of the season." So we are going to find out, good or bad, what happens to Glenn. But it was that what he said, some version of Glenn or parts of Glenn. I have a theory going on, which has been going around, that Maggie is pregnant. I think this kind of confirms that Maggie is pregnant. Parts of Glenn or a version of Glenn, I think that pretty much equals baby Glenn,
I can see
which
that.
is
I can
which
see
that
that.
that timeline is coming up in the comics as well. So this would be a very logical time, and if they're doing something like this on the show, this would be a good way to kind of go about it. Maybe Maggie finds out that he's left behind, and then he comes back and he finds out that he's a dad, and then he's going to stop going out on runs because it's too dangerous, obviously. He's had too many close calls, now he's going to be a dad. I think this is going to be the tie-in from the comics where he decides to stop going out on runs.
That could be very true. That could be very true. Now that the thing about Nick, if you noticed, like I'm sure you did, but Nick snapped out of it like 2 or 3 times during the episode.
Yeah.
And they really did put a lot of emphasis on that. So that kind of makes me think. And even with the guns, in my YouTube video, I stated that you heard the 2 clicks of the gun being empty, but the camera was on Glenn. But Glenn's gun was pointed down to the ground.
Yeah.
Um, no person who shoots a gun is going to pull the trigger twice with a gun on the ground when you got a horde of zombies coming at you. I'm sorry,
Exactly.
it's not gonna happen. Um, but there's parts of me that think that maybe a part of that was a hallucination. That how did Glenn see Nick shoot himself if the bullet weren't even in the gun?
Yeah.
So we really won't know probably for at least 2 weeks because we got that Morgan episode next week. So I guess we'll just have
Exactly.
to find out.
I think it's probably going to be 3 weeks because they like to mess with the fans and kind of drag things like that along. So I think it's going to be Morgan, which, we know. I know it's going to be Morgan next week. And then the one after that, I'm thinking they're going to go back to Alexandria and kind of hop back over there. We'll see some more there. Maybe see Rick get back there. Michonne and Heath and Scott just arrived back at Alexandria. So I think we're going to see some more of that. And then maybe at the very end of that episode or the episode after that, I think we're going to see Glenn again.
Well, let's hope so.
Hey everybody, this is producer Nick again. I just want to jump in with this one thing because I'm a total science nerd. I really love me some science. And I was trying to figure out earlier, talking to Taylor, about how perhaps like the viscera and the bile and stuff like that, maybe the blood that's drooling out of the zombies' mouths are kind of perhaps masking Glenn's scent.
Oh, yes.
So maybe the dumpster thing may not happen, but maybe he can just walk right out of there being covered in all this bile and stuff like that. Do you guys think that that Nick was dead long enough, that Nicholas was dead long enough for any sort of conversion to happen within his body? What do you guys think about that?
I think once you're dead, I mean, you're dead. I mean, we saw with Shane, he turned almost instantly. So it definitely can happen within a minute. I think average is a couple hours. Extreme, I think, is like 8 to 12 hours for turning, but it's definitely possible that it could be within a minute. And then
Maybe it depends on the level of dead, because like
True.
Nick's pretty dead.
Yeah. He did kill himself first. It wasn't the zombies getting him first, which I think could matter in this scenario. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that theory. That very well could happen. I kinda, in a way, don't think it was long enough for Nick's blood to actually cover the smell. I think if he was going to do that, he would more like what you said about the blood dripping out of the walker's mouth. He'd get a hold of some of that and smear it on his face, or
Yeah.
something like that. But at this point, any possibility is okay with me as long as he gets out of there. You know what I mean? I don't
Exactly.
even care if he grows wings and flies. I don't give a damn as long as he gets out of it.
Yeah, I think the main point of this is that Glenn is okay. Doesn't really matter, but he's somehow okay.
All right, we got the last set of business in order for tonight. Taylor, I want you to go ahead and announce this since this is all you.
We have, I don't know if everyone knows, we have fun things called fandom fights. Last week we had Carol versus Morgan, which Carol got the most votes in that, and I agree. I think in a straight up just fight between the two of them, I think Michonne would be, or Michonne, I think Carol would be more ruthless and just take him out. So I think it was Carol being the winner for that. This week we have Michonne versus Rick. And right now we're at 9 votes for Michonne, 4 votes for Rick. I agree with that. I would vote for Michonne. I think in a straight up fight, she would have the edge over Rick and she would win. What do you think, Mike?
Hey, I voted for Michonne. I mean, I, honestly, a sword's going to be the gun every time, if you ask me.
I think so, because in a fight, you're up close with someone. So even if Rick did manage to get a good shot off, she can still get right up there and get in his face with the sword.
Definitely, definitely. I may throw another one up next week, Daryl versus Merle. You never know.
That would be a good one, for sure. I would like
But
to.
that's
I
about
almost did a cowardly one. I almost did Denise versus Eugene. I think that would be fun too.
that's actually pretty interesting there. I'd like to see how that one turns out.
Maybe we'll do that next week. Which coward would win, or maybe who would run away the farthest?
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Good
Well, that's
stuff.
about all we got for you guys. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned next week because this is going to be a weekly thing. Taylor, we will see you next week. Thank you for being on the show and hosting with me.
Thank you. This was pretty awesome. Don't forget, we are also on Twitter, TWD Gurus. We are also on Instagram now, TWD Guru. And we have our corresponding Facebook page too, Walking Dead Guru. You can follow us everywhere.
Yeah. Nerds Unite.
Exactly.
Well, we have had a ball tonight. Thank you all again for watching. We will see you next week.